right, welcome everybody. Welcome and good evening. Welcome to Cape Theater for our 15th Playwrights Theater reading. Playwrights Theater is co-sponsored by those great folks over at Hendricks Murphy and the Department of Theater Arts and Dance. We're going to hear a play tonight. We're going to hear a play and have a staged reading of our 2014 Playwriting Contest winner. He's a two-time winner, back again with us from Dallas, Texas, Robert Preston Jones, the class of 75. We're going to read portions of his Act 1 and the entirety of Act 2 of Rook, Bishop, King, Queen. I guess I should get this over with. Those of you who have been to many Playwrights Theaters and shows here in Cape know all about this thing. It has no use, has no relevance here for the next hour and a half. So I would ask you, even if you think you've turned it off, go ahead and take it out, check it out, make sure it's turned off, just put it away. You don't need it. Okay? I'm going to give everybody a moment. Terrific, thank you. My name is Danny Grace. I'm a faculty member in the Department of Theater Arts and Dance. It's my great pleasure to work with this program and all my colleagues in the Department of Theater Arts and Dance and our great students. We're really fortunate to have 7 alumni back with us tonight in positions as director or as readers in our play, spanning the ages, classes of 63 through 2013. Other partners in this project are good friends over in development in the Office of Alumni Relations. So it's it's kind of an interesting event. It's unusual and I think unique to the college. We'll read the play tonight, and once we've read the play, my good friend and colleague, Professor Ann Hughes, will come out and lead you in a short discussion, feedback, so that our playwright can hear your reaction to the play. So it's very important. You're a part of this process. You're part of the idea of making plays. We're real proud here in our department to have been making plays, writing plays, and presenting new plays since, 1985, right, Dr. Hindenburg? Yeah, 1985. So it's a storied program. A couple of things. In your program, you're going to find this remarks card. We'd love for you to fill this out. You can hand this to one of our ushers, our fine student ushers, or to one of the folks at Hendricks Murphy as you go out to the reception. There's also, they're updating their email list. They'd love for you to give us your email. If you want to preserve the confidentiality of your remarks, you can just take that off and put that in separately. So please do that for you. I'd also encourage you to pick up one of our season brochures. We have a great lineup of plays. We're starting our season tonight. We always kick it off to Playwrights Theater. And you can look for dance concerts. You can look for the very best, the most innovative theater coming out of the Hendricks Theater Department of Theater Arts and Dance. So check that out. We'd love to have you. All the shows are free. Let's see, what else can I say? That's probably pretty much everything. After the talk back, we have a great reception. We'd love for you to come and join us, talk with the cast, meet the playwright, and that'll be right out here in the middle. So great to see you guys. Can you believe it that this many folks would turn out to hear a new playwright? It's pretty special. We're really proud of it.
Rook, Bishop, King, Queen. The stage consists of 3 sets of a table and chairs. The middle set will be neutral. Stage left will be Anne's quarters, and the stage right will be Cromwell's office. Act 1, Scene 1. The stage is dark. Slowly the lights go up center stage to reveal a woman in a dressing gown with her back to the audience, brushing her hair.
I am aware the lies they tell of me have reached you. Do not deny it. They've been heard by every resident of the realm. And it's not only our small isle where the rumors have been spun through every ear. We are a person of interest in all the jumbled provinces of Europe. I would not be surprised if even Suleiman the Magnificent had heard of the English king's concubine, nor would I if he had remarked on it. I bid you, gentlemen and women, to pay no heed to the fabrications of my enemies. I did not bewitch his majesty, as they claim. I do not display the markings of a witch, as they insist.
Anne unbuttons the front of her dressing gown and pulls back the collar, turning full circle as she speaks.
No goiter adorns my neck, forcing me to wear high collars. The unsophisticated harpies do not know the difference between affliction and fashion.
Anne pulls the front of her dressing gown to the sides of her breasts.
You will find no spare teeth either.
Anne lifts her gown to show her legs.
Nor will you discover the sign of the devil.
She lets go of her dressing gown as Lady Shelton, face obscured, appears and fastens a dark red petticoat about her, as Anne holds up her hands, turning them for all to see.
10 is the number of fingers I possess, and not a digit more. There's no indication of Satan's touch upon my person. You have seen for yourself the mendacity of those who side with the so-called vicar of Christ.
The Lady Shelton now puts a black gown upon her.
I would have him peruse for suspicious signs, and the fanatical friar of Wittenberg as well. And now they speak of the child who was lost. A boy who would have made Henry's love flourish anew. He was not malformed. The babe was not disfigured with horns nor cloven like a goat. None of these lies swirling about the palace are true.
Your Highness, the festivities begin.
Forgive my departure, the king awaits. There is time still for an heir, I'm sure of it. Perhaps after the May Day celebrations reach their end. A joust this after, and one tonight.
The lights go down. Scene 2. Cromwell will sit behind a table, stage right, writing in a book.
The state of his liege's mind and the state of his kingdom are in flux. As ruler of the church, it does but follow that the lands formerly given to the Pope and his Catholic domain have reverted to the Church of England, and as head of our church, to King Henry. However, the whore of Rome's protector, the Emperor Charles, must be placated. Unfortunately, the treaty I have negotiated with Charles is perceived by the king to be ill-conceived. Queen Anne is the one providing the notion which Henry has adopted. Although Anne's sun set upon her stillborn's demise, it has proven to be only momentary, for like the sun appearing from the darkness, she has risen again. I may be able to obtain the king's ear, but I also must contend with his intellect, a mechanism capable of its own intrigues. Even in diminished position, when the queen possesses his ear, she also maintains influence over an organ equally more pliable and stiffer than its resolve. And manipulate it well she does indeed, both with great skill and finesse, and so has a much clearer path to see her desires arrive. To take lightly the wishes of Queen Anne and her faction on the Privy Council would be a misstep of serious proportions. My course is one which will lead to a stronger monarchy and a more significant role in the shaping of events beyond our island. The sticking point to the treaty with the Emperor Charles is once more the recognition which the king believes is warranted for his marriage to Anne. The idea Anne has conceived him as necessary, which Charles will never agree to. He will see it as an affront. He will see it as an admission that Mary, his aunt's daughter, is not legitimate and therefore is not the heir to the throne of England, and must be. Anne has made this an obstacle to our needs and refuses to budge. So the realm appears to have arrived at a crossroads. In one instance, an unpopular but still powerful queen wants to lead us in one direction, and she employs the steel spine to accomplish this. A truth Cardinal Wolsey and Thomas More were to discover too late. To move the treaty forward, to maintain my position and succeed, I have only one choice: to purge the Boleyn faction at court and to exorcise Anne before she eliminates me.
Scene 3. Anne, visibly pregnant, and Mary are seated center stage with only it illuminated. The sounds of a joust are heard.
Nan, you glow as bright as the sun this day. And were it another daughter?
I can tell the difference in all ways from Elizabeth, especially now that the Aragon obstacle has departed.
I will question not the intuition of the mother in such matters. Will Henry be riding next?
It will be his turn to tilt once more. I know for the first time in years I feel unburdened and at ease.
A king in the saddle.
And one in the mare.
Nan.
Was in the lance before.
And a knight should aim for the torso.
But before the joust, he must mount his rise.
Spur it on.
Focus on his objective and cling tight to his stirrups.
And be careful not to shatter his lance.
Or ride too soon.
His Majesty would
No, he wouldn't. No.
And it appears he was victorious.
And followed the chivalric code. I would have worn his colors.
Then you would have had something to wear.
I believe it is His Majesty's turn.
Anne and Mary will stop and watch as the sound of a joust is heard, ending with a crash and a loud fall.
The king!
Anne will clutch her stomach and cry out, trying to stand. She slouches to the ground, gasping and writhing. Mary will approach and hug her. As the lights go down center stage, the lights slowly come up on Cromwell, stage right.
The king survived his mishap, but not before a slow and agonizing recovery. Anne was too naive to ask if she would become queen consort to Elizabeth. I had not the heart to tell her. She instead would have found herself in the midst of a great civil war. Only the king's return to fitness prevented such a calamity. Fate, however, is perpetually lingering at the ready to assail us and disabuse us of our most cherished notions.
In the remaining scenes, the audience learns of Cromwell's plan to bring about Anne's demise, following her miscarriage. He tasks Kingston with collecting 5 different men, from members of the King's Privy Council, to a court musician, to Anne's own brother, and fabricates stories to accuse them all of having affairs with the Queen. He also meets with Thomas Cranmer, the Archbishop of Canterbury, and tells him to find a way to annul the King's marriage to Anne. In addition to the 5 men accused, Anne is also arrested for acts of treason and infidelity, and escorted to the Tower of London. Kingston instructs Lady Shelton to spy on Anne during her confinement in the Tower, and to deliver any relevant information that could somehow be used against her at the trial. Mary Boleyn visits her sister in confinement at the Tower, and asks her to help compose a letter to Henry, begging him to reconsider the charges being brought against her. The letter is intercepted by Cromwell, who reiterates the importance of keeping Henry away from Anne. Mary visits Anne again, and they reminisce about the early days of Anne and Henry's courtship. Anne laments Henry's newfound infatuation with Jane Seymour, and inquires as to the trials of the 5 men accused of sleeping with her. She learns that the accused and the various witnesses called were either tortured, threatened, or bribed into testimony that implicated their guilt. Archbishop Cranmer speaks to Cromwell before Anne's own trial, and voices his concerns about the validity of the accusations. Cromwell tells him to keep quiet, lest he lose his own title as well. We learn that all 5 of the accused men have been sentenced to death. Cromwell again demands an annulment of the king's marriage to be recognized by the church. Anne stands trial for treason against the king, committed through the various affairs she is accused of conducting. As to 5 men before her, Anne is found guilty, stripped of her titles, and sentenced to death. Act 2, Scene 1. Anne appears in Cromwell's office.
Thomas, do you really believe this will allow you to achieve what you covet so longingly?
You mistakenly believe these to be my aims, Queen Anne, when they are but the king's desire.
Henry desires the pleasures of the monarchy and not the drudgery. As long as the music continues unabated, he will dance to the sound of your instrument.
And what is your wish, Your Highness?
To see the marriage recognized and the faith as well.
You mean attested to by our soon-to-be Cardinal John Fisher?
When the broad brim and tassels of the galero arrive, there will remain no head in England to set it upon. Henry will have you see to it.
Then we speak of Sir Thomas More.
They begin to walk towards the tower.
His impertinence at missing the wedding and then refusing to sign the Act of Succession is emboldening our Catholic population. Fisher has not the cachet nor the life force.
Nor the nuance. His allegiance has always been to one alone.
More. His dawdles on the bridge above the chasm far too long.
He knows where every broken plank is, and he will be difficult to turn.
As Wolsey before him.
Wolsey believed that he could placate two sovereigns. He did not see that as long as the Pope was the bitch of the Emperor Philip, and that the Queen Henry wished to dispose of was Philip's aunt, the endeavor would never go well. If he could have divorced himself in the church, he would not have been broken.
For some, Thomas, morality runs deep, and the process of which you speak may have broken him all the same.
It is a weakness I cannot abide, and one which will ultimately ensnare the good Sir Thomas More.
We must find the trap from which he cannot free himself.
He has acknowledged you as queen, madam.
But did he swear and acknowledge Henry as head of the church? He cannot slither around it on his way to the gallows this time.
It may incite the populace.
Never seemed to bother the Holy Chancellor more to burn men and women at the stake when they did not share his religious views.
True, it is all about where one stands in the room, and Henry will have his church, but it will not be Protestant. In his mind, he sees a Catholic church, with himself as Pope.
But he said he wishes to align with the princes of the north.
Look past his words to his meaning. It is against Philip, not the church. The church is what courses through every very being. And when you are your own Pope, no one can hold you hostage.
Except yourself.
Always a danger.
Lord Chancellor, is it necessary for Lady Shelton to dally with us?
There will be no possibility of tongues making false movement. The lady stays, as she has previously.
Cromwell makes a small gesture, and Lady Shelton moves to the side of the room.
A seat, Lord Chancellor?
Yes, my lady.
Cromwell pulls one of the chairs out and motions for Anne to also sit. After she has, he sits.
Is it no longer proper, even in this confinement, to address the Queen as such?
It is not the etiquette but the status which has changed. But this is only one of the reasons for my visit. Perhaps it is well that you to stay seated.
A change in eminence.
On this day, there is no Queen of England.
And how did this transpire?
It was discovered before you wed the king that the king had carnal relations with your sister, Lady Mary Boleyn, and this is an abomination to the Lord God, as stated in the good book.
And this is the first anyone has heard of their affair.
This was known, but was put aside by a papal dispensation.
And the Pope's ruling is no longer considered binding?
Quite. And because of this revelation, it has been determined your nuptials should be put aside. We would not want for the king to be damned by such machination.
Nor would it be well looked upon to burn a queen.
This I cannot comment on. But in another turn, the king has decided to show mercy and has called for the finest executioner in the realm, one adhering to the French method.
Henry's benevolence.
Madam, your sarcasm will not salvage your affair. The king has heard the last of your sharp tongue.
So the king will not witness?
His Majesty is busy with other affairs requiring his consideration.
Preparations for a wedding.
I believe my duties are at an end.
Cromwell rises and returns his chair to under the table and departs. Anne sits quietly for a few moments.
I can hear you listening. I'm speaking to you, mute one. Come forward.
The Lady Shelton appears to Anne, who turns her head in her direction.
How long was I confined here before you gathered enough to allow them to discover the charges against me?
I do not know what you're saying.
Can you not give the condemned a little satisfaction?
I spoke to no one.
To whom do you report your lies? To Kingston? To Cromwell directly?
I communicate with no one.
What have they promised you? Do they hold your family, or is it only personal gain you seek?
My lady, no one has spoken to me.
When you enlighten them, are they between your thighs?
How dare you speak in such a manner?
You are the vile entity pleasing the ones in power.
You are the concubine who prostituted my daughter in order to keep the king happy, something he could no longer be while residing with the shrew.
Madge was a willing participant.
Madge was still a child who was bedazzled by the proximity to power and wealth the king represents. She would never have felt his embrace if you had not placed her in his path. You have devastated her reputation because you could not bind him to your bed.
She was given a proper match to Norris.
A man now dead because he cared little for her affection. You think there is a place for her when she has been twice sullied? I doubt you would treat your own daughter any differently.
My daughter is a princess.
Your daughter was a princess. But what she has always been to you is more than a notion than a child. Elizabeth has barely seen you since she left your womb and entered this realm. You could not tell me what she likes to eat or what her laugh sounds like. You are a bitch who cares little for anyone other than yourself and the things you fancy. The truth is, you have treated Elizabeth only marginally better than you did Mary.
Elizabeth is my beloved.
Elizabeth is a pawn in your game for control of the king and the kingdom. It would have been better for you, though, had she been a knight. You treated the Princess Mary in a manner more befitting a slave than the offspring of your husband. Do not be surprised if a similar fate awaits Elizabeth.
If you had spoken to me in this fashion in April, I would have had you banished.
It is now May, and I will address you as I please.
You may speak as you wish this day, but in the future you will have another to answer for your insolence.
And who shall I answer to? God? Which God will it be? For years in England, there was only one, but you are responsible for his being replaced by a Protestant, stealing the wealth of the monasteries and nunneries, and not to redistribute it to the needy, but to dress you in fine clothes as you pass through countless ornate palaces. Do not talk to me about my fear. I would think it best to ask yourself which God you will find tomorrow.
I'm sure the needy are provided for.
Scraps, which fall from the banquet table and are more appropriate for hounds than humans. Look in the mirror and see the finery which adorns you, while many are lucky to possess but one garment.
But I am a queen.
You were a queen.
Kingston, approach.
Kingston appears after a few seconds.
Your Highness?
Kingston, is it possible to remove this person from my chamber?
No, my queen, it is so ordered she stay.
Then please request her not to speak to me.
That is not necessary.
Lady Shelton turns and retreats into the background.
Tell me, Sir Kingston, how long after dawn? As I am ready to be finished with this pain.
Your Highness, in the morning is all I've been told.
Is he able?
The executioner. I've been informed that he is the best. His sword, razor sharp.
And places her hands around her neck.
Then it is doubly good, as I have a little neck. Will I find many rising with the sun to be in attendance?
I understand it is to be closed to all but those necessary.
They fear the crowd.
There are sympathies arising.
It was a trial then.
Also, the executions of the others accused. To a man, they refused to pronounce themselves responsible for the crimes that they were found guilty of, except the musician.
He was not born for such things.
He was glancing about and appeared more than surprised when no hand pulled him aside.
Then he went badly.
Perhaps more in shock and disbelief than poor form.
Did the others make declarations?
Little was said. Weston made note to the effect that one should not count too cavalierly their days of this life, and Brereton seemed to pronounce his innocence, but haltingly so.
Who knows what the offense was Brereton committed against Cromwell to have him placed in such a position? If I had been one to perpetrate such acts as were found against me, I promise it would never have been Brereton. My brother, did he make a pronouncement?
Lord Rochford began by saying he was born under the law and now must perish under its auspices. He then stated his sins deserved death 1,000 times over, and his presence at such an end should be a warning not to trust alone to one's good fortune. He ended by asking forgiveness of those he had wronged.
He did not admit to the charges.
Only that he had sinned in a general way.
Their blood, will it still stain the scaffold, or are they attempting to scrub it away, Sir Kingston?
You should try and rest before morning. I will wake you and let you prepare for the Archbishop.
And last rites?
Kingston nods and departs. Anne looks forlorn and tired as the lights go down. Anne sits quietly for a moment.
Henry, if I can only speak with you.
She pauses, listening for anything, and puts her head on the table as the lights go down. Scene 2. Anne sits alone as a knock on the door is heard.
Your Highness, there is a visitor present.
But a moment, Sir William.
Yes, Your Majesty.
Anne rises and picks up a mirror on the table and glances at herself.
Now I'm ready, Sir Kingston. Is it the king?
I fear not, Your Highness. The Archbishop is here for your confession.
You may enter, Sir William.
Kingston will depart, and shortly Cranmer will enter.
Archbishop, how does one who owes so much to the Boleyns treat us so abysmally?
Position is but one page in the story told. I do not relish this part of the narrative, and I've made my feelings known. Alas, to no avail. It was clear to me, it was made clear to me to find cause.
Having done it once, was believed you could produce again.
The first time, found you enthusiastic.
The treason they say I have committed, it is only as I am queen. But if you, the Archbishop, has put our marriage aside, then it is no longer an act of treason to betray the king.
My Lady Anne, Cromwell will twist the knife one way, and if it does not secure his desire, he will twist it in another. You're in a legal maze, a hedgerow thicker than those at Hampton Court.
But if you were to restate my case or convince him to see me,
Lady Anne, it is you who gave him the power to do these things. You allowed him to think that he should act as he should not, and to act as no sovereign had before him. He defied the many for you and would not have come to those conclusions without your presence. But your presence is no longer desired. From earth's ripe surrogate slit we are born, small, fragile, with no thought of anything past our breath. And to earth's fertile gash we are lowered, broken and feeble, to rot and nourish the mud anew, and await the plow's return. It is time to think of what will take place tomorrow morning. I will, of course, pray for you.
who will lead me across the river?
Will it be a Catholic God? Will he condemn us for our work? It is a question I ponder when my mind is adrift. We can only choose one way. In a future time, I will awake near you, and before I open my eyes, will know the answer.
You will feel the heat or not.
For both our souls, I pray it is temperate.
It is time for the unction, Archbishop. Before we commence, may I call in Sir Kingston to witness?
As you request.
Lady Shelton, will you please ask Sir William to join us?
Cranmer will put a Bible in a small jar from the satchel he put down upon entering, while Lady Shelton will appear and then exit, returning with Kingston.
Thank you, Master Kingston, for your presence.
It is an honor, Your Majesty.
I'm without appropriate dress. come tomorrow.
I will ensure a suitable outfit is found for your departure.
Once more, I must beg your indulgence. Please allow Lady Margaret Lee to make the choices. She will see me in fitting finery.
As you wish.
May we begin?
Proceed.
May the Lord be with you, that you may make a worthy act of contrition.
Bless me, for I have sinned. My most egregious sin being the sin of poor treatment of an attitude towards the Princess Mary.
And as concerns the adulterous charges which find you in this predicament,
I swear by all which is holy that no one but Henry has ever felt my touch, nor has anyone but him caressed me.
if you are trying to deceive us, you are aware you are risking eternal damnation.
I do so, and affirm my previous statement.
Think well. I shall ask you once more if this is true.
I am unwavering in my declaration of innocence, and do not fear from my utterance.
Very well then, Anne. You must repeat an act of contrition for your behavior towards the Princess Mary.
Lord Jesus, I have examined my conscience, and I have confessed my transgressions. I'm sorry for these transgressions, and firmly resolve with the help of your grace to sin no more. Amen.
Amen.
Cranmer will turn the Bible on the table to a bookmark. Cranmer will then open the jar, and as he reads the passage, will anoint Anne's forehead and then wrists. As Cranmer is doing this, the lights will slowly dim.
Is any sick among you? Let him call for the elders of the church, and let them pray over him, anointing him with oil in the name of the Lord. And the prayer of faith shall save the sick, and the Lord shall raise him up. And if he had committed sins, they shall be forgiven of him.
Scene 3. Lights up on Cromwell, seated center stage, writing at his desk. Cranmer enters, stage left.
Your scholarly endeavor has succeeded in producing the divorce needed. Henry will be most pleased by this.
It is my duty to serve his liege. Since the Queen did not appear in the proceedings, they were greatly expedited.
Leaving the king to marry the one he desires.
Well, if you wish to put it so.
How do you perceive it, Archbishop?
A male heir should be the first and foremost the reason to abandon our queen, or one queen for another. For this end, a younger woman is needed.
As I see it, desire is the most important ingredient in producing an heir, Archbishop. King Henry also requires your counsel on the matter of those who chafe at the new paradigm.
I am my king's servant, and shall by course think on it. However, Lord Cromwell, I might more easily find the verse needed for support amongst the vast sea of the Bible if you were first to decide how you, or rather the king, plan to proceed against Sir Thomas More. Are we not ultimately speaking of him?
I am only asking, rather the king is asking for your contemplation in the matter.
Cromwell and Cranmer will proceed to walk towards stage right.
Begin by casting your nets on the water in the general direction of allegiances to one sovereign. And this leads to another inquiry, the dissolution of the smaller monasteries of our realm. A series of sermons to the advantages of these actions will soon be needed.
Queen Anne has also spoken of this. She states it is necessary in order to distribute more equitably amongst the poor the riches they contain. Is this how you are understanding it as well?
Yes, something of this nature.
Or is it to enrich the king's coffers?
As to the mind of the monarch, I am but an instrument.
Oh, of course, Lord Cromwell. I shall contemplate and control the waters.
The to reach stage right.
Have we administered the viaticum, Archbishop?
Yes, Lord Chancellor. And by doing so, I have come to the conclusion that an execution is a gross miscarriage of what is just and true in the presence of our Lord Jesus Christ.
And exactly what did you hear in Anne's confession to lead you to this assumption?
It is what I did not hear, Lord Chancellor.
Thomas, what was left out?
Any admission of guilt regarding her sexual conduct against the king. Anne understands damnation awaits those unwilling to confess their sins. She knows full well the platform is built and the hour imminent.
Have you considered, Archbishop, the possibility we may find her in league with the devil?
If she were so, she could not have participated in the unction without agonizing pain.
For pride, then?
Would not the strongest resolve melt before the furnace of hell?
If the mind was clouded enough.
I swear, I saw no evidence to lead me to the conclusion you put forth.
The forces at work may be more powerful than you are aware.
Lord Chancellor, we're dealing with a mortal, not a supernatural force.
Then what is it you are suggesting, Archbishop?
A pardon and banishment to a nunnery.
Where do you propose she should go, Archbishop? She will be difficult to place in our world.
Near her father's estate.
Currently, the Boylans are out of favor. I do not deem it wise to introduce a catalyst into the equation. I do not see the king allowing her to be so close.
Across the channel.
Most of the rest of Europe will have no desire to harbor king's concubine in their midst.
A German prince.
I can make inquiries to the feasibility of such a notion.
Then you will consider a pardon.
This is a decision which only the king can make.
I will approach him and inform his majesty of my concern.
I will broach the matter with him later today.
Remind his majesty, mercy is looked upon favorably by our Lord Jesus Christ.
Lord Cromwell, I'm here as requested.
Our king finds himself agitated by these events, and I will inform him of everything you have said today. But his majesty will know his own mercy. Enter, Kingston.
Of course, Lord Chancellor.
Sir William, when the Archbishop has completed the blessing from the scaffold, it will signal the time is nigh. Be sure to have the gentleman from Calais be ready so we may proceed.
Do you mean the executioner, Lord Cromwell?
Yes, Kramer, the executioner.
Lord Cromwell, I am the Archbishop of Canterbury, not some parish priest you may bully about, and will be addressed as such by you until the day you add this title to your register.
I am engaged in a multitude of labors, and am in no mood to be trifled with.
Since these actions were initiated, I have not received the respect due my name or position. I will not be merely one employed in your proceedings, Cromwell. The king owes you much. But are you well versed enough to petition the Lord into his eminence's satisfaction? Consider, Thomas, that King Henry is well acquainted with the testaments, while you view God as more a pawn than a deity.
Yes, of course, Archbishop.
Pray, of course, that the king has a reversal of heart on the matter, and the presence of the gentleman from Calais is no longer warranted. But Lord Cromwell, if it is needed, it is best to call the executioner by his proper title. That is, if one is prepared to see him perform the task for which he was hired.
What is this to you, Creek? Archbishop, I would call him as I please, and you will perform your part, and he his, and Kingston here will perform as well as the wishes of the king will be acted upon. My dear Archbishop of Canterbury, at a time when many heads are departing their bodies, and not just those of humble beginnings, but also the highest in the realm, it might be best for you to contemplate the whole of the kingdom. It is full of cattle, both to and for laying. All are unaware of anything but the smallest pleasures as they chew their cud and trudge across the fields towards the horizon. If one is on the countryside, one speaks in the Anglo-Saxon of a cow. If one at a court, the French term beef is proper. The cows are raised by other cows and eaten by the elite. Early in life, I recognized a way to separate myself from the herd, and I do not offer an excuse. When you ask for wine, you do not ask who grew these grapes, or matured them, or brought them forth to your goblet. You only wonder why it took so long to receive. When the king sends foot soldiers into battle, he does not ascertain first if it is the wish to be torn asunder and die. He is thinking only of his glory, only of himself. We do not ask the bovines or the beings if they want to be slaughtered for our repast. It is the way of the realm, and it will be of God. The spectacle complete, the audience dispersed, you may prepare for your next official act as Archbishop of Canterbury. As I said, swiftly upon the departure of the Archbishop, our play will reach its final scene. The king has many things on his mind which require his attention, and we do not want him to lose momentum.
Do you fear the Lady Seymour will not complete her responsibility?
The Lady Seymour is aware enough to demur to all the king's desires, excepting the cardinal, and she has the steel to see he does not wander off course. Her carrot is well within his vision and dangling tantalizingly close. I will be a witness and desire no lapse upon the scaffold. Is all understood?
Yes, Lord Cromwell.
Archbishop, are we reading the scripture as one?
Yes, Lord Cromwell. The king's wishes shall be seen to.
I will have you informed of the king's decision shortly.
Cranmer departs.
The heart once engaged in affection for one, even after settling on another, may shed a few tears, reviving for an instant the feelings which have withered. Those roots must be severed before we lose our advantage. In another day, the Holy Roman Emperor's representative will be present, and the execution can proceed as intended.
Lights down on Cromwell. Scene 4. Mary and Anne are seated stage left. There is an extra chair and a table with 2 mugs and a pitcher. Anne is dressed in a white chemise with buttons in front and a red petticoat. Lady Shelton is in the background. There is a knock on the door.
Your Majesty.
Enter Sir William. Is the time of reckoning approaching? I have but a few more preparations.
I do not know what to say, Your Highness. Proceedings have been deferred until tomorrow.
Is there no one to speak to the king and expedite the command for the procedure?
I am unable to influence the orders, Queen Anne. Do you not rejoice at this day?
I'm at this time disposed to the fate which is to befall me, and do not wish for it to linger, as my resolve may deteriorate.
If it were possible, Your Majesty, I would clear the path before you. I humbly ask your pardon, but I cannot avail your desires.
I do not blame you, Sir William, but I do have a wish which you may be amenable to fulfilling.
Yes, my queen, how may I serve you?
Come, sit so we may converse.
Your Highness, it is impossible for me to sit in the presence of your grace.
Sir William, good Sir William, the law has sealed my fate. Take it with it my name and title. It would please the condemned for you to sit for a moment.
For you, my queen.
Thank you, Sir William.
Kingston walks to the empty chair and sits, and Anne leans towards him.
And now I have a
Of course, Your Highness.
Would it be possible for me to spend my postponement alone with my sister? Surely there's no more information to be gathered, as I'm convicted and sentenced and can see the gallows shadow from my window.
As you wish, Your Highness.
Standing, Kingston motions to Lady Shelton, who approaches.
If you would be so kind as to vacate the Queen's room in order to give her an unhindered rest before the events of the morn.
My directives are to stay until it is completed.
I will take responsibility.
Lady Shelton departs.
Do you desire anything else, Queen Anne?
You've been more than accommodating, Sir William. And again, it is no longer necessary to address me so.
Yes, Your Majesty.
Kingston starts to depart, but then turns back.
Your Majesty, I have been told the proceedings tomorrow will take place shortly after sunrise, and you shall not be required to endure such an extended wait following the dawn.
I hope this to be true.
Kingston departs.
This nightmare not finish, am I never to shake the sleep from my eyes?
But the suspension has brought you another day.
Is it better to spend more time dwelling on the inevitable?
If only I am selfish, at least I have more time before your departure.
And those of the court will receive more time to polish their observations.
Before the act?
It's always the most prudent way to do it. Know what is going to happen before it does. You can always change a word here or there if it is not exactly as written.
These are not things I am aware of.
You're better off for it. All of the court, both English and foreign, have written their versions. We will see who needs to change the fewest words in order to convey their meaning.
But only Henry's counts.
Cromwell writes Henry's account and lets the others steal a look so they can take proper notes. All of Europe is focused on one piece of my anatomy. Is my face beautiful or ugly, or my eyes seductive or enslaving? No. It is not them upon which they are transfixed. And it is neither my breast soft and tantalizing, nor my other feminine parts which they find to be so enticing. Although it was but a short while ago, they could think of nothing else. Now the space between my shoulders and my head is what they desire to know about. A neck so out of context is what they will write about, talk and gossip about. For as long as it is intact, they have no interest. But once severed, it will become the subject on everyone's lips.
It has not taken place yet. Perhaps there is a reason for the delay. Is a pardon with nunnery attached impossible to conceive?
Dear sister, the wound in the ground that is to be my grave has been dug. They will not fill it until I lie therein.
I've heard that people have doubts of the conviction. Another drink of wine will help you see the possibilities.
I believe a nunnery is where I should have made my way as soon as my blood began to course. The male appendage has cost me everything. If my son had lived and grown hard, a male heir blooming would have ensured my role as queen. The Janes could come and go, and what little difference it would have made to one with an unbloody decolletage. And those who cannot bring themselves to term me the cursed whore of Christendom may soon choose to call me Queen Lackhead instead.
Nan, it grieves me to hear you say these things.
Just to lash out at Henry and that chinless one Seymour for what they are doing. But I fear for the Princess Elizabeth.
For all his faults, the king does love his children. No matter what you think, Nan, he would never allow you to depose Princess Mary. Banish her for a while, yes, but he can smell his blood, and no matter if Jane drops a son, it is not like Henry to be without an alternate.
As Jane is mine. Elizabeth's safety is how I must see things and plan my final words. I see no other way to shield her. How sweet it would be to rob them of this moment, to die before the sword can swing, leave them wagging their tongues with no appearance to witness.
Would they find another to complete the spectacle?
Perhaps Lady Shelton, a bag upon her head, the bloodlust sated.
How then would you engineer this egress? You could open your wrists.
Oh, too messy. Why trade a wrist for a neck anyway? I need a more elegant exit. Even if I'm no longer queen, I need to make appearances. Shall Cleopatra be my model?
A serpent's bite to end the night.
Do you have one at the ready? And if it only paralyzes or bites the wrong entity, then what?
A potion, strong and sudden.
Poison, leaving a corpse serene and lifelike,
A presence to behold.
with head attached. Come tomorrow, dear sister, you shall still see this world, while I shall gaze upon another. You not even know if I will miss it. I've been observing the pigeons outside my room. They recognize their way through this world the moment they are conceived, waver not throughout their lives. But they can do what those before them have done forever. There must be some comfort there.
Dear Anne, you are not a thoughtless pigeon, but a falcon, a hunter possessed of far more nobility than the feathered brats upon your sill.
I am no longer the falcon, but a tree cut down in my prime. But all this talk does make me weary. Although I believe sleep may well elude me until I breathe no more. I've been reflecting of late and have come to the conclusion which allows me to face this end. When I was lying in bed several years ago, sweating, my mind produced a fevered rapture so genuine, I found myself speaking with our Lord. I knelt before him and I prayed for him to let me live, so I might ascend to the throne and produce an heir for Henry.
You've not mentioned this before.
When I was restored to health, it left my memory until a dream the other night. I woke remembering the prayer, and I realized he had allowed me to do those things as promised. And for every moment I drew breath since the illness, it's by his grace alone.
But now,
The reprieve is caught up and must end. I fear I hastened its manifestation by my attitude towards the king and Princess Mary. It's too late for thoughts of this now. Although the mind will on occasion set off in a gallop. And then I return to the dream. It helps bring my speculations to a halt and my serene demeanor is restored.
do I detect the melancholy of returning?
No, Mary, I think perhaps it is slumber more than ennui fighting me at last.
Do you wish for me to leave you to your rest?
Truthfully, I cannot say if I desire to witness these last moments here or in a sleeping state. But I fear I do not. I will not appear in the manner I desire from our performance.
Then I will let you have your respite, and we'll come again in the morning.
Mary, kiss me and do not return. And do not witness. I want to be remembered as I stand before you. And then as one is transformed into a corpse before your eyes.
Nan, I am at a loss for words.
You're no longer necessary. Do what you are allowed for Elizabeth. Choose your flesh as mine, and I will live on through her.
Mary departs, and Anne sits down sighing and puts her head down. After a while, Cromwell enters.
Lord Cromwell, do you believe the charges brought against me to be true?
The sentence has been passed. It is my duty to comply with the findings.
Does Henry believe the charges?
I cannot speak for the king.
My accusers were mistaken. I was not present in many of the places or at the times indicated.
There is often a fault caused by the frailty of memory, which is why the words, and on many diverse and numerous other days and occasions before and after, were included.
My brother? Could you not find no other way to set him aside than with the titillation of your indictment? Common minstrels and members of the Privy Council are one thing. George, I cannot fathom. Did you destroy what you aspire to be but cannot be?
These queries will not make your transition any easier.
Someday the king's heart will thaw and he will see what you have engineered. The others accused, were they shown mercy as was afforded me?
Yes, but with an axe. And die well they did, asking for the king to be obeyed in all things.
And Henry, is he with his cow, the Lady Jane?
Miss Seymour does not raise her voice or show her ire to the king, lessons which might have kept you in his favor.
And what would have kept me in your favor, Thomas?
She begins to loosen her petticoat, letting it fall to the ground.
As you read the allegations, did you consider yourself in the place of the accused?
I am but a purveyor of the king's desire.
Anne begins to move towards Cromwell while unbuttoning the front of her chemise.
Illicit intercourse, Thomas, is not prohibited with an ex-queen whose marriage has been put aside.
It would still be adulterous.
Anne continues to advance and unbutton her chemise.
How long has it been since your wife passed? 6 years? 7? Observe your glances at the court, Thomas. Did you believe your desires would not be perceived?
Not too distant.
Anne presses her chest against Cromwell and lightly runs her finger down his cheek.
Thomas, a nunnery far away, but not so different, more distant. You could not visit, be welcomed with open arms.
Cromwell puts his arms around Anne.
Not too distant.
Anne pulls him closer.
I can feel your arousal, Thomas. I can feel the warmth.
Cromwell kisses her head, then forehead, then lips. Visibly shuddering, he pushes Anne away.
Sorceress, you will not turn my desires your way. I am a servant of the king.
Anne slumps to the floor and chokes back tears.
No, you are a blacksmith's son who has risen above his intended station.
Tomorrow, my head will still be attached to my body.
How long do you think it will be so, Thomas? You have the stallion in tow for the moment. The day will come when you desire this deed to turn, but are thrown instead.
Then it will be my worry and my head on such a day.
You will find it hard to think in a restricted space, your access denied, accused of crimes you did not commit. Will they also find you to be sleeping with the king's privy council?
When you indulged him to put aside one for another, did you not see it would be easier and swifter the next time? Catherine's breathing was keeping you both alive. Now there are no legitimate marriages, no legitimate heirs. The Lady Seymour is free to bear the son the king needs to ensure his line. There will be no pretenders.
Mary is not moved to the fore.
No, nor Lady Elizabeth. The slate is clean. Once more, no names adorn it. Now our conversation is complete.
Then I await the morning and meeting the man from Calais. Pray they are as indulgent with you.
Cromwell exits, and Anne, looking exhausted and frightened, wipes her eyes and puts her head on the table as the lights go down. Scene 5. Lights go up on an empty chair. Lady Shelton enters, stopping at the table and absentmindedly arranging things on it. Anne enters wearing a black gown with a fur-lined cape and English gable hood.
The hour is nigh, Your Highness.
Enter Sir William.
All is prepared, Your Majesty.
There will be no delay.
All has been arranged properly today, Your Highness.
Do you carry the alms?
Kingston pulls a small leather pouch from his pocket.
Your Majesty, I will present them to you to distribute as you desire.
Thank you, Sir Kingston. Need I hold some in reserve for the swordsman?
He has received his remuneration in advance and warrants no further regard.
And the crowd, are they sufficient to witness the proceedings?
The yard is full.
So they've changed their thinking.
There appears a different tone than yesterday.
Is the Seymour faction represented?
I've not counted heads, but I believe they are about.
They waste no time then. Are only Englishmen present?
I believe a sufficient number of foreigners are also present.
And there will be many who will be pleased this morning.
Not all in attendance are of the opinion you express.
If so, then they represent but a small fraction. At least now they will see my real beauty, since the threat clouding their vision will be gone soon enough.
The dress is very becoming, Your Majesty.
It does not present itself as too loose, or is it impossible for the whore of Christendom to appear so?
No, you are of a vision.
And you should watch how you address a queen, or you will follow me up the steps.
As the lady has made plain before, an ex-queen will prompt no such response.
I suppose that also makes me the ex-whore of Christendom as well.
Then perhaps a balance has been achieved.
Sir William, may I request one more indulgence before we begin?
Of course, Your Highness.
Lady Shelton, approach.
Yes, my lady?
Anne pulls a letter from beneath her robe and hands it to Lady Shelton.
Please see that Henry receives his missive. Remember, this is a dying person's request, and as such, sacred.
As you wish.
Let us commence our walk, Sir William.
Lights slowly down as they walk off stage. Scene 6. Lights up on Cromwell's office. Cromwell sitting behind the table, reading a paper. Stopping, he will begin to speak.
Good Christian people, I am come hither to die according to the law. For by the law I am judged to die, and therefore I will speak nothing against it. And she did not. And she died well. She even beseeched the people to pray for Henry, calling him one of the best princes on earth, before humbly asking the pardon of the world for herself. Easier to have the upheaval take place quickly than have it linger on. A little over a fortnight was all the time needed. No real occasion to think clearly on the matter at hand. Only time to accept the inevitable. Those left forgotten in the tower until one day someone remembers them and has them executed. They are deserving of pity. Better go fast, before you are scared to death every day, beaten, starved, afraid of every sound and movement, and still believing that you might be saved. Your health shattered, your body diseased. So when you are dragged into the light and the sword is drawn, you disgrace yourself. Anne showed a fearless countenance and was not humiliated in any action. To hold to your composure takes great fortitude. Many even commented how beautiful she looked after calling her a witch and a whore all these years, and had an air of the opposite sex could not breathe enough of. Unfortunately, her strong will would not allow her to know her place as a woman, and this, though initially the king found to be enticing, was her undoing. A woman is a man's support, not his equal, and has paid the price. In a day, the king will be betrothed to Lady Seymour. Henry shall have his heir, and all will be well. Perhaps on an enticing spring day in the future, he will consider for a moment if he acted rashly, but Jane will see to it his notions evaporate like the morning mist.
Cromwell will pick up from the table the letter and gave Lady Shelton. He will look it over and tear it in half twice. Then he will drop it on the ground. He will then turn and walk slowly toward the tower.
When I go, I hope I go as graciously as Anne.
Cromwell will sit in Anne's chair in the tower and put his head in his hands. Thomas Cranmer enters with Sir Kingston.
Any word from my liege, Thomas?
Archbishop.
Give me your grace. Any word from his liege, Archbishop?
The execution will commence shortly as decreed by order of His Majesty.
Well, what did Henry say?
About?
About the false charges that have placed me here. I refuted every word of the so-called Lutheran conspiracy.
Cranmer sits and pulls some of the sacraments from a valise, setting them on the table as he speaks.
He said nothing. Well, I'm King's advisor only on things related to his position as head of the church. Nor Thomas am I of a mind to try and dissuade a decision the king has already made. I did so once, and felt the isolation and fear for a good summer. Do you wish to go through the pretense of a confession?
I made my arguments eloquently.
Thomas, a confession.
Does he not see the need to align with the German monarchs?
I am at your service, but you must decide.
The bastard Norfolk, smirking as they led me away.
It cannot be undone, Thomas. You of all men in this realm must realize this and accept it.
It was not the Flanders mare, was it not, Archbishop?
Once more, and for the last time, Thomas, do you desire to make a confession?
An eye for an eye, an an for an an.
I think you may proceed then, Kingston.
Kingston walks to where Cromwell is seated and stands until Cromwell rises.
It will not serve this kingdom well.
This way, sir.
He will regret this outcome before winter's first frost.
Lord Cromwell.
How could Henry have allowed this to transpire?
Why don't you ask him yourself, Thomas, when you see him in heaven?
Thomas and Kingston will walk slowly off stage as Cranmer puts the sacraments back in his valise. Cranmer will stop and look up.
Or wherever.
End of play.
Good evening. Thank you all for being here. We're going to have a little brief discussion. I'm not sure where you are, Preston. I didn't. There you are. Can we give Preston a general... And we have folks walking down the stairs. They have pencils for you if you'd like to make some comments on the comment cards. We'd really appreciate it, and I know Preston would as well. So we'll just start with some of these questions. Is there anything that surprised you about the play? She, got the, I don't know if that surprised anybody or not, but did anything in the play surprise you? No? Any qualities about the language or the characterization or anything that struck you? Let's move on. Did anything happen that you didn't expect? I'm not asking good questions, Dan.
I liked
Yeah?
the ending with getting to see a glimpse of Cromwell's fall too. That was fun. That was I thought the play was going to end with just Anne, and it was kind of neat to get to see a little glimpse of Lear and Cromwell's fall too.
So can we tease that out a little bit? What did you like about it? Was there some kind of satisfaction for you in knowing?
I liked the immediate transition from finalizing Anne's death and then moving across the stage to realize Cromwell's death. What was said about the set initially, I just sort of took it, okay, that sure, it's going to function like that, and it didn't really surprise me in the way it was set up and used throughout what I heard at stage directions. Until that very last moment when we got to see sort of a transition in time that happened really smoothly.
Great, thanks. Anybody else? Yeah, we'll move on. What didn't happen that you expected to happen? Anything? Can I ask students a question really quickly? Did you know the story of Anne Boleyn before you came? Yeah, so I see a big nod, yeah? So was there anything about this that surprised you? Were you remembering? Oh, sorry, do I have a hand over here?
Do you want to say something in here? No? Keep it down.
I'm always surprised by the fact that no matter like what adaptation I do the story, Anne is always so forgiving of like any accusations towards her sister. That there's never any. I've never seen a like portrayal of this where Anne just like rips into Mary, well, except for the other like the other little girl. That and even in that it wasn't malicious. It was like so I just kind of expected Anne to rip into Mary when she found out that the reason she was credited as queen, she never does.
Right. What do you think it would have been like if she had done that? What would have happened to her character if that had happened?
Definitely would have hurt her character, like portrayed her as innocent and benevolent and graceful. There was definitely a certain element of grace to her character, to the ending of the character. Something that what you said earlier, I think that there definitely was that satisfaction at the end because there was that big like juxtaposition between her gracefully walking out and him just kind of being like, where is Henry? What is like, where is Henry? So
Anybody else? You just saw the second act and a little bit of an introduction of the first act. Okay. What would you like to see happen with the play? Is there anything that you sort of envision that it's missing or something that you'd like to see happen in particular in the play that wasn't as satisfying as you'd like for it to be? Yeah? Can I open it up to the actors and director? Do you have any questions or anything you'd like to add about the play? Yeah. No, I thought you had a question.
You put me on the spot.
I'm so sorry.
Well, Thomas, is that?
This is a question for the playwright. Is the part of the design that we never see Henry? It's always in his way.
Once Anne was arrested, Henry never talked to her once, never saw her.
But he's not a character in the play ever. He doesn't have.
No.
He's always in the background, correct?
Yeah, because it starts with her arrest.
I see. Okay.
So is that something you all missed, not seeing Henry? Is that something you would have liked to have seen? Yeah, so I see a little nods there. Yeah?
No, I like the fact that he's never showed up. It's just that it's just weird. Like,
And he's using Cromwell as his pawn.
Well, see, then that also raises the question, is Cromwell actually talking with the king, or is he just doing what he wants? And telling people he's been talking.
So Ben, I think you're a chess player. Is there anything about the title and what you saw happening up here that fits with chess for you?
Oh, yes.
Yeah?
Cromwell's clearly the rook trying to make his way up to king.
Good. Good. And fails. Yeah. Okay. So any other final, any questions? Yeah. Robert.
Matt, I really enjoyed watching the execution of the premise, which is this exploration into how Henry was in fact sort of a non-role. Because in other manifestations of this story, for instance, Anne of a Thousand Days, King Henry is very much present in that play, and to a certain extent, I feel like it's almost told from his perspective more than anybody else. Sure, you get the other characters, but he's very present. And seeing how all of these things sort of take off in a whirlwind without him even, gracing the stage is a very exciting point of view, because you realize how many people are gunning for control and how many ambitions are colliding at the same time.
To have Henry marginalized is certainly different.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
I was going to speak to similar topics, so pretty much something.
Okay.
With better examples.
Okay. Yeah?
Going back to the whole, what did you expect to see that you didn't see? I guess I just didn't see a lot of anger. And I feel like going to your death, I mean, maybe this is personal, but I'd be angry. And there was a lot of resignation there, and obviously she was graceful and she was beautiful, and I just wanted something different.
Who did you expect her to be?
Well, almost everyone, specifically you and also Mary. I mean, I just expected a little more disbelief almost.
And we did, I'm really curious to see the parts of the plan that we didn't get to see, in which, because we sort of saw the setup and then we saw pretty much the resolution, in which the major events had transpired, and we didn't actually get to see Anne fighting for her. Yeah, we didn't get to see the fight, and I would have. I mean, that just is part of the story that is very.
That is portrayed more in some of the scenes that we didn't read tonight. Trials especially.
And we selected this, by the way, because Preston needed to hear it. We call this Playwrights Theater because we want the playwright to hear the play and also hear what you have to say, because he's still working on it. And so this is something Preston thought would be good for him to hear tonight. Yeah, so that's why we sort of went in this direction. Yeah, that's good. Okay. Yeah. Awesome. Hey, Allison.
Hey, Allison. Just a couple things. I find it interesting that the play is titled Rook, Bishop, King, Queen, and yet the king never shows up. I was wondering about that a little bit. I mean, it works since he did so much behind the background, but part of the title.
Right.
I think it works because, as a chess player, the kings, for the most part, kings are the most used player. Like, the only reason the king would ever win was if you were desperate and the king needed to move out of the way, or maybe take with it himself. But for the most part, you don't play with the king until you have to. So, I kind of found it appropriate that,
But in the game of chess. Did I have another? Yes.
Now, I haven't seen the rest of the play, obviously, but I'd actually like to see more of the Archbishop's character, especially when he gets the last laugh in the play. I think that's fantastic. Like, I want to see more of that.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good.
And he actually has the best speech that for me has become the spine of the play, where he points out that she has empowered the king to think differently.
Yeah.
And she has actually led to her own demise in that regard. Then he gives that speech about the futility of life, that we come forth from the surrogate gash and we return to the. That for me really became the crux of the play.
Absolutely, he's a great character.
And I think that proves the point of the queen being the most powerful player. The king being the weakest player. That statement that you make, that she gave him the power to do this, and then Cromwell stated that he had to get her out of the way to get what he wants. It just shows everybody has to move her out of the way to get what they want. She's the most powerful person.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of you hit it a little bit at a woman not knowing her place. And that Anne didn't really know her place
She
as a
wasn't
woman. went beyond that. I'd like to see that explored again.
One of the lines that I really like is you don't want to, you're not his equal or.
Yes.
Yes, yeah. So a strong woman was it, yeah. And yet, had she had a boy, it would have been fine.
Isn't it ironic? I mean, isn't it ironic that the lead story at the beginning of this week's news has to do with the birth of another heir? I mean, this is still something that shapes
It does.
2 continents away.
Yeah.
Of course, ultimately, the king did show who had the most power.
Well, this has been a delightful evening. We've really enjoyed it. I know, Preston, we'd love for you to come up and bring one of your plays with you, and we're so happy you're here. We're so grateful when our alums come back and read for us. It's such a treat. And we're, of course, grateful to Murphy for its support and all the wonderful food, especially they have for us out in the lobby. So, please make sure that you turn in your comment cards if you have comments on them, because we will compile them and send them to the playwright. And make sure that you fill out your email address so that you can find out about all the other wonderful things that has going